Hi, my name is Dave Mercer with IDT Photo. Together with my wife Jane, we created a project called Present Arms, a salute to our military veterans. Our goal is to preserve the legacy of our military veterans who served our nation proudly. So if either you, a family member, or a friend served our nation and would like to tell your story, please contact us at idtphoto.com, or you can email me directly at david.mercer@idtphoto.com. Thank you.
Okay, Pat Boyle, and I was in the United States Army in the field artillery.
Okay.
My MOS was computer. This was back in the 1950s. There was no computers back in those days, but that was my MOS. What I did is I calculated the windage and elevation for the artillery guns. It was a 155 gun battalion in Korea. And
How long did you serve?
I was just served 2 years.
Okay. What bases did you go to?
I started out, well, after I joined up, I pushed my name up. There was a draft then, but you didn't get drafted till you were older. And I got out of high school, I pushed my name up in the draft, and they were glad to take guys, so we went for 2 years that way instead of going for 3. So I did that. And the reason I joined the Army, my father wanted me to go to school, go to college, and get an engineering degree, so that he had a little side business. He thought if I had an engineering degree that we could expand the business. Well, working for him since I was 12 years old, never paid me. I thought I don't want to get an engineering degree and then wind up with him and he doesn't pay me. I don't think it's. So I joined the Army, and I was so glad I did, because being from the inner city of Chicago, I never really liked it, and I didn't realize I didn't like it as much until I got in the Army. I joined the Army, went into basic training in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and after that I went to field artillery training in Camp Chaffee, Arkansas. And after training, most of the guys went right to Korea because the Korean War was going then, but I got shipped up to Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, and it was a little infantry post up there, and we were protecting the Sioux Locks. And I thought I died and went to heaven, because the serenity and the beauty of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan is just unbelievable. And I remember I had a girlfriend at the time. I was quite young, and I wrote her letter that, boy, I wanted to get married and just live up there. I just loved it. And it was just good duty, and everything was just going along so great up there, and there was a lot of deserters going across the bridges. There was no bridge going across to Canada at the time. There was just a railroad bridge, and there was a ferry taking cars across. And they didn't build that bridge until I think somewhere in the maybe 60s or 70s. So we had a lot of deserters going across the railroad bridges there. And being that I was from Chicago, our a post commander had me take the prisoners back to Chicago. So I'd take prisoners back to Chicago, and I'd leave on a Friday afternoon. I'd just get to Fort Sheridan at about 8 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't have to be back on base till Tuesday. So I had a nice little long weekend every time I did that. So it was really nice duty. And then after I was there for, I think, 3 or 4 months, then I got my marching orders to go to Korea.
Okay. Yeah. So what was the reason that you left the military?
Well, my time was up.
Okay.
My time was up. And I thought, at first, until I got to Korea, I thought, it's not a bad life. It wasn't a bad life. They didn't pay us much. Back then, I was making $61 a month. And the World War II guys were getting $21 a month, but it was $61 a month. And when I went to Korea, I got an extra $50 a month. But I was a private, and then, but it was a good life. It was a good life. When you're a teenager, that training is not that bad at all, and and like having the rifles. They taught us a lot of things about a lot of things that we didn't realize we were taught. We didn't realize how much information they really gave us. Mm-hmm. American soldiers are really trained well. Here's a case in point. We had a M1 rifle down here last year, and the guys blindfolded me, and I put it back together. Now, I hadn't touched that rifle in 66 years. That's how how good a training that was. That was all rote training. I put that baby back together.
Let me ask you a question. Do you remember your drill instructor's?
Oh yeah, I know.
What's his name?
Sergeant Taylor.
And that was 66 years ago.
That was 66 years ago. Yeah. Yeah, I'll never forget him as long as I live.
Yeah.
He was an all right guy. He'd just come back from Korea. He was in the 25th Infantry Division, and he told us a lot about what Korea was like. You know, we all figured we were going there anyway. You know, when I grew up during World War II. I was a paper boy, and there was no real professional baseball, football teams because all the guys were in service. You know, 20% of the population, I understand, was in the military. So our heroes were all military guys. One guy wanted to be in Marine Corps, one guy was the Air Force and Navy. We all had different branches of service that we wanted to get into. Well, when the Korean War started off, and I was a sophomore in high school, and I thought, what the heck, you know, we're all saying, hey, we can join, we're going to see the big show, you know. So we all joined after high school, a lot of us.
Yeah.
So.
Do you keep in touch with anybody that you served with? Or?
No, you know, I did. I got one guy down in Mattoon, Illinois. I'm going to see him on my way to Florida this year, and he was our supply clerk. Just a nice guy. Jim Shook is his name, and I've kept in contact with him. He's the only one that I can find. The rest of the guys, I never saw them again after we left. I did see one. He came to my wedding, and that was in 1958. Or 57. I was 1957. I saw him. That was the last time I saw him. He was at my wedding. And I don't know where he's at. And my good buddy that I went to high school with, grammar school with, and high school with, and went to Korea and we served together, he passed away about a year ago.
Okay, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, so.
What do you think is the biggest lesson that you learned about joining the military?
Well, I got very sure of myself. I got very, very sure of myself when I got out of the military. I know that I was more sure of myself than I was when I went in, and I guess you'd call it kind of cocky. You know, that's really what it was. I was kind of a wise guy when I got out of the service. I thought I knew everything about everything. You know, and that was a good thing in one way and good thing bad in another. It was good. I was in the trades. I was in electrical trade, and we had to travel all around the country, putting up tower lines, and I just loved doing the work, and I caught on to it real fast, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I didn't realize I couldn't do that all my life, because it was very physical, it was very dangerous, and I didn't think about that at all. And I got to be quite good at it, and I was working a job in Arizona, and I got married. My wife thought it was such a nice job and everything. And the next job, I had a job in Tucson, Arizona, and we were putting the Fremont mine is out there. We put the first electric in there, in the Fremont mine, and that's 138,000 volt line.
Wow.
Yeah, so big steel tower lines going in there, Lola Hughes Airport. So, and then I started going to night school. I got married right away instead of going to college when I got out. So I started going to night school, and I had the GI Bill. And then the company I worked for, they paid for part of my tuition. And then, when I was in Arizona, I should go back a little bit. When I left Arizona, my wife wanted to get back to the Middle East. The Midwest here. She just loved it. And so I came back here, and I wound up here at the city of St. Charles. And I went on there, and the old engineer he wasn't really that. He was 55 years old, but I thought he was ancient. He was just a nice guy, probably one of the best distribution engineers I've ever met. And he quit after I was here I was his assistant. I was here about 3 years, and he quit. And then I took over the utility, and I did that job for 30 some years. I ran the utility for 33 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So do you have any advice for like young guys now thinking about joining the military?
Well, there's two places to grow up, and that's the college campus or in the military. I didn't think of that when it was happening to me, but the military, both things, you're going to get education from college, and you're also going to get a good education from military too. My son is in nuclear chemistry, and he hires people, and he said that the guys that come out of the Navy that have been on nuclear ships are the best. He hires them. He says they're all very knowledgeable because they sleep about 5 foot away from that reactor all the time, you know.
Yeah, I have a friend that's works on a nuclear ship also.
Yeah,
And
they're very smart. Yeah, very sharp guys. So if you can learn something like that, it'll do you. You know, field artillery and infantry. It's still such good training because it makes you very sure of yourself. I had to deal with job problems and things of that nature when I started my trades, and I think my military experience, getting sure of myself and going on missions and things like that, really helped me with my self-confidence in that. Yeah. The GI Bill. I started engineering with the GI Bill, and it worked out well because I started out with correspondence courses, and the company I was working for, Ellie Meyer's company, they paid for part of my tuition, and then when I came on to the city of St. Charles, they paid for all my tuition, and at the time I was the only one going to night school, so it wasn't bad, you know. And they had the GI Bill, and I thought, well, I can't collect both of them, so I didn't take the GI Bill. And when I went to the VA center, they said, you know, there's other things you can do. And they said that I was looking through a flight training, and I had already had a pilot's license from before. And so they said, you know, you can get all of your commercial license in instrument rating and flight instructor rating, all the ratings if you want to take flight training. So I signed up for flight training. I did that part-time while I was going to night school and part after night school. And so that was quite successful. I had 2 careers. And after I retired, I was doing flight instructing work for a while. And I've got all the ratings, multi-engine commercial and flight instructor. So I still fly today.
awesome.
Yeah. I just flew last week. I went up to Wisconsin.
And that was all through the GI Bill.
The GI Bill, yeah, I made the military really did well for me with the GI Bill. I never would have gotten the education I got to engineering. I never would have got the flight training that I got except for the GI Bill. And and the reason I got it was because, you know, in case I ever wanted to change careers, that was what the GI Bill was for. And they were very good about it. Very good about it. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I'm still flying today, so I'm really happy. And if it wasn't for that, now today, that's really one of my biggest outlets is flying. All these young people I hang around with.
Awesome. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there one story from the military that you think stands out, or that you had during the military experience?
You know, I think the first time I got on a ship, I think the ship going over and coming back was a good experience. I enjoy. In Korea, I was just there. The ceasefire was on, and that was pretty much routine stuff that we did.
Okay.
But the ship going over, it was really funny because we had to. It was usually 2 weeks, but we took almost 3 weeks to get over to Korea because we had to drop some Seabees off up in Adak, Alaska, and the seas were so bad the ship couldn't get in there to get them off. So the ship kept going around in circles for about almost a week. And a lot of the guys got sick. So the guys that didn't get sick, there was 3 or 4 of us that didn't get sick. And it was more than that, but there was 3 or 4 of us talking together one time, and the guy from the galley came up and put us down in the kitchen, just serving food. That's all we had to do. And he said, now he gave us each a little sticker that we couldn't do any detail on that ship because we were serving with the food. You know, they're really fussy about the food in that. And it was one of those old Kaiser Fraser boats. Mm-hmm. And so we'd serve, there was about 300 or 450 people on the boat. Once we'd served them all, we'd take about a 2-hour break, do whatever we wanted to do. We'd go down and serve lunch. Then we'd take a couple-hour break, we'd go down and serve dinner. And we didn't wash a dish or anything like that. It was just a nice duty, you know.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I had a lot of fun on it. And I'd never been on a boat before. And, you know, a young kid from the inner city, I got to go on the boats, and I thought that was kind of nice. They were only troop ships. They weren't like boats like we go on today.
Yeah.
And those ships. And I got to ride the trains all over the country, which was kind of nice. And I got to fly in the airplanes and that.
Yeah.
So it was quite a nice experience, you know. The Korean War was pretty well winding down.
Yeah.
The ceasefire was on at the time. There was still some bad things going on there. They were building the tunnels then and that, you know.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we were cleared minefields and that
Really?
type of thing, you know.
Okay.
That's pretty much. I think the worst thing I remember was all the orphans. There's war creates a lot of orphans.
Yeah.
And if they don't get them all rounded up and get them in orphanage, they wind up in the big cities, and they get into the gangs. Survival. The kids
Yeah.
can survive,
Yeah.
so they have to get a hold of in the gangs in the cities. We call them the slicky boys, and they had to steal and that to survive. And we had kids hanging around our stuff. They'd follow us around all the time,
Yeah.
because we'd always give them something to eat, and they'd wind up with a blanket or something.
Yeah.
If they were in the countryside, you know, nobody'd steal the stuff away from them. Where in the city, if they gave them a blanket, they wouldn't have it. If it was a bigger boy, would take it away from them.
Ah.
So, yeah,
Such is life.
yeah, really, yeah. So that's about all I had.